Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Okay, well, good evening. So welcome to the College Credit Plus night here at Springfield High School. My name is Greg Daringer. I'm the director of the College Credit Plus program at the University of Akron. So what Mrs. Weekland has asked me to do is I'm going to be providing our general presentation for College Credit Plus. So the beginning part will just be covering a lot of the state rules and policies that are applicable to College Credit Plus at any college or university. And then I'll finish the remarks with specific information about the enrollment process for the University of Akron. And then after I complete that, I'm going to pass it off to Trevor from Kent State to talk about the Kent State process. And then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So I'll go ahead and get started with the information then. So a good starting place is to talk about what is College Credit Plus. So you've probably heard about this in recent years, and the best way to describe College Credit Plus, it is a dual enrollment program. So what that means is, so here in the state of Ohio, students in grades 7 through 12 can take college classes through different colleges, universities, and the reason we call it dual credit is not only are you taking the college class for college credit, but that will then transfer back to Springfield and apply towards high school credit. So that's why it's referred to as a dual credit program. So you're receiving both college credit and high school credit simultaneously as a participant in the program. A big advantage of the program is that your tuition and fees for those college classes are paid through state funding, so out of pocket. In essence, it is almost like a scholarship opportunity because you're going to be able to earn those college credits free of charge from the state of Ohio, as well as textbooks are paid for by Springfield schools. So those of you that are familiar with college textbooks, those can be pretty pricey, hundreds of dollars. So from that standpoint, literally a student could be saving thousands of dollars towards their future college education by having the tuition and fees paid for through state funding as well as the textbooks paid for by the district. So some other things to kind of keep in mind as far as advantages. I always like to kind of say the biggest advantage from an academic perspective is the opportunity for a student before they've even graduated from high school to get some college credits completed and out of the way is going to help to facilitate then so that when they do graduate from high school and are pursuing their future college degree, minimally it's going to help that student to stay on track to get their future degree done in a timely manner, if not even accelerate it. Now I'm going to speak in some kind of extreme examples here, but in most cases, CCP students at the same time as they're graduating from high school have accumulated about 18 total college credits. So that's roughly the equivalent of a little bit more than one full college semester. That's the average typically that we see at all of our universities throughout the state of Ohio. In far extreme examples though, at all of our institutions now, we're starting to see students that have completed 60 credits or more earning an associate's degree through a college or university. And in very, very rare examples, we've even had some students earning bachelor's degrees as participants in the College Credit Plus program. Again, that is very rare. The students that have done that typically have started as early as in middle school or as at least a high school freshman, and they're going full-time courses and credits in order to complete that degree. So in most cases, students are usually just taking 1 or 2 classes in a given semester or school year, so it's just helping them to get a little bit of a jump start and a little bit of a head start on their college education. But the other advantages are that students maybe will have access to some new and different classes that are going to be available at the college level that they don't have back at the high school. So those are some things to be thinking about as you're pursuing College Credit Plus. Some potential expenses. So you heard me say earlier, tuition fees, textbooks are covered when a student is participating in the CCP program. One of the few expenses that is not covered, so when the state was developing all the rules for CCP, they said we're going to make sure tuition fees, textbooks are paid for, but if a student is physically going to a college campus, and I guess the most important thing, that they're driving themselves, because there are alternative ways. You know, a student could be carpooling with other siblings or friends. Mom and dad could be dropping them off and picking them up. But if a student has a driver's license and they're driving themselves to a college campus that does have a parking fee, that is the student and the family's responsibility to pay. So that would be one of the few upfront expenses that is the student's responsibility. And then the first bullet there are some expenses if students fail courses or withdraw. So we'll talk about those a little bit later on. Okay. And hence the next slide here talking about failures and withdrawals. So the state indicates that if a student does not complete a class, so the 2 ways of not completing a class are either by withdrawing from a class after the drop period at that given university or by failing a class by earning a letter grade of F. The state policy indicates that the student then is responsible for repaying the school district the amount of state funds that paid for that class. Now here's kind of the good news, the bad news. Bad news is you have to pay for the class, you're going to repay the district. The good news is it is not the full tuition cost of that class at the university. The state has a reduced rate that they calculate for that, but it still could be hundreds of dollars that the student and their family would have to repay their school district. Now the good news is at all of our institutions, overwhelmingly, the students participating in College Credit Plus are successful in their classes. I wish I could say there are no students failing or withdrawing, but it's a very, very small percentage of students that does happen to them, that they have to repay the school district, but just know there are some potential financial ramifications for failures and withdrawals. Okay, very important tonight. Once you leave this program, and if you're interested as a family of having your student participate in the College Credit Plus program, one of the most important steps that needs to take place is to the high school, you need to submit what is called the intent to participate form. So Mrs. Weekland shared with me that on the table as you came in this evening, there is the intent form that was on the table, so make sure that you did pick one of those up if you did not, and then you're going to return that to the school. That is just an intent form, so it is not committing or binding. So if you decide after tonight that your student's not going to pursue the College Credit Plus program, that is perfectly fine. Even if you turn in the form and change your mind, that is perfectly fine too. This is just a requirement that the state implements because they want the school district to kind of anticipate how many potential students they may have that are interested in College Credit Plus for the upcoming school year. So it's non-committal. You can change your mind after the fact, but what can't happen, unfortunately, is if you decide after April 1st and you've not turned this form into the school district, then it is a district decision if they will allow the student to submit their form and still be considered for the upcoming year. And then this form does need submitted year after year until the student reaches their senior year of high school, which would be their last year of participation. One of the other forms that was on the table that Mrs. Weekland asked me to share was there is a counseling session form that was out there too. So these are some of your forms that need to be submitted directly to the school. That's just indicating that you have spoken and had some discussion about College Credit Plus, which this program is covering this evening. And then last but not least is one of the other forms out on the table specifically for the school is for the Google Classroom for College Credit Plus. So Mrs. Weekland encouraged you to make sure that you sign up for that. And she has posted in there all of the corresponding information for all of the universities that participate in College Credit Plus with Springfield High School. So you're going to see information for Akron, information for Kent State, so that you have links to all of our details and application instructions, which we'll also be covering this evening. But April 1st is that very, very important deadline that you've got to keep in mind for the first kind of step for CCP. Now let's talk about how you participate. So you've got to do that intent form here at the school. And then the other thing that you're going to need to do is go through the enrollment process at whichever college or university that you may be planning to take classes through. And the state does allow students to take classes from more than one university. So you're lucky here at Springfield High School because you have classes taught by some of your teachers through the University of Akron and through Kent State, which are part of the College Credit Plus program. So if you're taking classes from both of our universities, you have to apply to both of our universities. But your first step in the enrollment process is determining if you meet eligibility. So we'll go through that first. And then the second step will be going through the admission and the application process to the university. And then last but not least would be course registration. So how does a student meet eligibility to participate in CCP? So the first way that a student may be eligible is based on a grade point average. So the state of Ohio a few years back kind of set a standard eligibility requirement that any student who has at least a 3.0 unweighted cumulative high school GPA, you will qualify for eligibility to participate in the program. So let me run through that real quick because there's a couple different kind of identifications there. So it is a cumulative, which means an overall grade point average. Unweighted, so at many schools, including Springfield, I'm sure, students can have weighted grades in advanced placement or sometimes honors courses. So this is an unweighted grade point average on a 4.0 scale. And very important, that is a high school GPA. So if you remember back on the beginning slide talking about who's eligible to participate, it's students actually in grades starting 7 and 8 up through high school 9, 10, 11, and 12. So notice this is a high school GPA. So unless a middle school student has already taken a class for high school credit, most likely they're not going to qualify based on GPA. So we'll get to the second kind of qualification after I finish one more thing here on GPA. So if you have that 3.0 unweighted cumulative high school GPA, or if you have at least a 2.75 unweighted cumulative high school GPA, that triggers that the college or university that the student has applied to can evaluate that student based on some relevant courses to determine if they also would qualify based on GPA. So your first way is qualifying by high school GPA. Second way, so let's say a student doesn't have an established high school GPA already, they're a middle school student without any high school courses, or if they have a high school grade point average that is below a 2.75 for special consideration, then that's going to trigger that the student will have to complete some type of an assessment test in order to qualify for eligibility. The college or university that the student is applying determines what that assessment test or test is. So for example, at the University of Akron, if we have an applicant who doesn't qualify based on GPA, we require students to take the ACT or SAT test, so those national standardized tests. Other institutions, and correct me if I'm wrong, at Kent State, you will take ACT or SAT as well, but you also will allow acupuncture, correct? So each college or university might have a different assessment examination that they would use to determine that eligibility. A big thing to keep in mind, though, is if a student does qualify for eligibility based on their grade point average, that doesn't mean that that's going to exempt them from any type of testing. Most colleges, universities will also require some type of a test for course placement, but that might be administered after the student has already been admitted to that program. So it's very important that you're going to follow the steps and instructions that you receive as you're working through the enrollment process. But does everybody have that so far? So you're going to qualify either based on a high school grade point average or some type of an assessment test if you don't have a qualifying high school GPA. Okay, everybody got it? Okay, so second step then. So first step, you know, okay, I meet the requirements for eligibility. So the next step in the process then is that you're going to apply to the college or university or universities, if it's more than one, that you plan to take your college classes through. The most important thing that you're going to do in this process is you must complete the college application. So your intent form that you're going to turn in to Springfield High School is not a college application. This is a state form required by the school. So each of our universities does have an online application that you would be completing to apply to them. So that's the number one first step in the application process for admission. One recommendation that we have is that when you are completing the college applications, sit down and do these together as a family. Parents, please do not do your applications for your students, because that's a sign already that there may be not the responsibility required of a student to be participating in the program if they can't do their own application. So minimally, please sit down and do them together. Secondly, students, please use your own personal email address, not your Springfield High School email address when you're completing that application. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Weakling, can your students receive outside emails to their Springfield email? Okay, so they can here at Springfield. Most schools cannot. They can only receive internal emails at their school district. So we usually recommend using a personal email. That should be a student email address, not a parent email address. On all of our college applications, there will be a separate section that does ask for parent email, so that can be included at that point. It should be the student's email because this is their college application to the college or university. So just a couple pointers there with that application process. Another standard thing that you're going to see that is required by all of the universities is there is a state required form called a permission slip. That's in the state of Ohio mandated that a couple years ago. That form is asking for a parent and student signature, and it's acknowledging that you're aware that you'll be enrolling in, your student will be enrolling in college classes that could have mature content. Does that mean that every college class has mature content? Absolutely not, but the state wants to make sure that the student and their family is aware of that. So that's a standard form you're going to see with every application. And then secondly, kind of related to that, there's what's called a student questionnaire that the college or university will administer to the student after they have been admitted to the program. But the final thing that you're going to need for every one of the colleges is a copy of either your high school transcript or middle school report cards or grades in order to be assessed and evaluated for admission standards at that university. So the online application, transcript, permission slip, those are going to be standard for every university, and then there could be some other supplemental forms unique to that college or university that you're applying to, so you'd want to make sure on those college websites what those supplemental forms might be. Okay, and then here's the reference to the permission slip and the mature subject matter that the state requires. Okay, so once you've gone through, number one, you've met eligibility. Number two, you've applied to the university. Your final step is going to be course registration. That course registration may be different for each university. At some universities, for example at Akron, we require our students to attend a on-campus orientation program. At that orientation program, the students will meet with a college advisor, and then you'll be enrolled in classes after that meeting. Kent State, and I know you'll explain this, they have an online orientation for enrollment into their program. So it's very critical that you're paying attention to your emails, because the university will send you step-by-step instructions on what those final kind of steps in the enrollment process are in order to be enrolled in classes. So those are your 3 steps on how to enroll. Just some other things about courses then. So much of what I'm covering this evening, by the way, these are actually, I say state rules, literally it is state law. So the College Credit Plus program is actually legislated here in the state of Ohio, so many of the rules are governed by what's written into Ohio law for the program. So as far as classes that students can take, this law or rule stipulates that if a student is brand new to the College Credit Plus program, they're going to be limited to what are called allowable or level 1 courses. So basically what this rule means is brand new students within their first 15 credits are going to be restricted to courses in some specific categories. Once a student has completed 15 credits, then they're no longer restricted to just courses in those categories, and then they can expand beyond that and take additional courses. So what are level 1 or allowable courses? So defined by the state, I'll cover some of the subject areas first. Subject areas within level 1 include any computer science or information technology courses, any anatomy and physiology, or any foreign languages including sign language. So within your first 15 credits, those are some of the key subject areas that students can take classes in. Outside of that, the state says that students may also take what are called transferable courses. So here in the state of Ohio, the state universities and the community colleges, so the University of Akron, Kent State, Stark State University, we actually have classes that if you take those at any of our institutions, they are guaranteed to transfer to all of the other state universities and community colleges here in Ohio. So some of the courses are called Ohio Transfer 36. Good way to think of it, those are kind of your core subject areas like English, math, and science. So if you take courses in those subject areas within your first 15 credits, those apply towards CCP, and they are also transferable within the state universities. In addition to that, we have some other transfer courses called Transfer Assurance Guide, as well as Career Technical Assurance Guide courses. Those are courses usually in a specific major or a career and technical field that are also guaranteed to transfer. So it sounds like it's a little bit limiting here, but in reality, these courses cover the majority of the core classes at all of the universities here in Ohio. So there's quite a few courses even within the first 15 credits that students can choose from. But then again, after you've completed 15 credits, that opens up the door and you're no longer restricted just to the transferable courses or the courses in the specified subject areas. Okay, non-allowable courses. So a little bit of a difference here. So allowable courses have to be completed in the first 15. Not allowable courses, unfortunately, the state will not pay for these at any time. So even if a student has 15 credits completed, state will not pay for and fund courses in these subjects. So the state will not pay for any one-on-one privately instructed courses. The state will not pay for phys ed courses or remedial courses. Remedial courses are oftentimes writing or math courses that don't count for college credit. So based on a student's placement, they may start at a college or university taking these courses before they can get into an actual college level English or a math class. The whole premise of the College Credit Plus program is the student is starting into a college level class, so that's why the state will not pay for these then. So depending on the college or university, it is up to them. Sometimes they will allow students to self-pay for these courses. For example, at Akron, we do have some students who have actually self-paid and taken some private music lessons, which are one-on-one courses, because that student's ultimate goal is they want to go on and become a music teacher or a music major. So the student and their family has decided they're going to pay for those courses out of pocket because it's important to them to get them out of the way. But that's up to the individual university whether or not they would allow students to pay for those. Okay. And then other class selection, you heard me talk about the allowable courses already. A lot of the allowable courses are in the subject areas that you see here on this slide. So a lot of courses are taken within the social sciences like government and history, psychology, sociology. The number one enrolled course subject in the entire state of Ohio for College Credit Plus is English. Something like 85 to 90% of all CCP students take English as a participant in the program. We also have students taking math classes, science classes, foreign languages. So again, as long as it's within level 1 when you're starting into the program, you are allowed to take those classes, and then after you've got 15 credits done, you can take classes beyond that then. So just a couple options there as far as classes. Now, class formats. I'll talk more about formats a little bit later on too of what you have available here at the school. But more and more at all of our universities, we are seeing students that are pursuing taking online classes. These are typically what we refer to as an asynchronous class, and what that means is, as an online class, it does not have designated meeting days or times, so students are not required to log in and it's a video conference class. They're able to actually follow the course content and the lecture materials on their own time. Now, what that doesn't mean, though, is that they're work at your own pace and there's not due dates and deadlines. Absolutely, in an online class, typically students are going to have required dates that they've got to do assignments, they've got quizzes, tests, papers that are due. So it's not work at your own pace necessarily, it's more work on your own time to participate in these classes. The biggest thing that I stress that you see highlighted here, though, is that if you're thinking about taking an online class outside of what you might have available here at the school, they're a big time commitment. And a good way to think of it is when you take any given college class, we refer to them as how many credits they are. So typically a 3-credit-hour class, if that class meets in person, it meets for 3 hours a week with your in-person class meetings, and then in addition to that, you would have all of your assignments and activities that you'd be working on outside of class time. When you're taking an online class, all of that time is rolled together. So very quickly, a 3-credit-hour online class, you need to cover still 3 hours for your lecture content because professors might be posting PowerPoints or videos and instructions for you to kind of follow the material. But on top of that, you also still have all of your homework assignments and activities that you have to get done. So very quickly, a 3-credit-hour online class could be 6 to 9 hours of work per week. So where we've been seeing students really struggle in these online classes these last couple years is they have underestimated the time commitment for these, and they lack the communication skills to reach out to their professors when something is unclear and they need help. So if you know you're going to be able to manage your time effectively and you're going to ask questions when you need help, then probably going to be successful in the classes. If that's something you think might be a little bit more challenging for you, I would encourage you to hold off and wait on taking online classes at this time, because they can kind of get students into some difficulty. Okay. Some differences between high school and college. So the state wants us to kind of make sure that, when you're thinking about the College Credit Plus program, what are all the potential ramifications? And I kind of talked about these already, just talking about the online classes there. But one of the things you can expect in college classes is there is going to be a bigger time commitment and level of responsibility for those classes compared to high school. And if you think about it, typically your high school classes are meeting every day of the week, Monday through Friday. So you cover much more of the coursework in a high school class in school. In college, it's basically flipped, that you need to spend almost more time outside of your class time. So bigger time commitment, possibly less graded assignments in a college class, and then that study time is definitely going to increase for your college classes. Role of parents. So do you guys have progress book here at Springfield? Yes. Do we have a progress book at the college level? No. So when your student is taking a college class, you're not going to have access as a parent to their information and their grades that's going on in their college classes. So it's a big difference compared to high school. Another difference is in accommodations. So if a student is on an IEP or a 504 plan, that doesn't automatically transfer to the college or university to receive accommodations in the college classes. So students will need to register with that college or university. Each of our universities usually calls it something different, but it is some type of an accessibility office that students can register with. And in most cases, students are still going to receive some accommodations, but they may not be identical to what the student is receiving in their high school classes, if they have an IEP or a 504 plan. So some other things to kind of keep in mind there. Okay, your grades. So you heard me say at the beginning, you're earning dual credit. So you're taking a college class. It's going to be on a college transcript for that college or university that you're completing your coursework through. They're also going to transfer back to the high school. And when those grades are transferred back to the high school, if Springfield High School has a weighted grade in the subject area of your course you're taking through College Credit Plus, you also get a weighted grade in that College Credit Plus class on your high school transcript. So the state wants to kind of make sure those are kind of equalized if you're doing CCP versus AP classes here at the school. Some academic policies here, and at most colleges, universities, this policy is also the same. So what the state stipulates, though, is that when a College Credit Plus student is participating, if they fall below a 2.0 grade point average just in their college classes, so not looking at high school anymore here, so 2.0 or less, or I'm sorry, less than a 2.0 in their college classes, that places the student on probation. So a CCP student on probation is still eligible to participate, but in the following semester, they're going to be restricted or limited to just one course. And that one course cannot be in the same subject area if the student earned a grade of D or F in the prior semester. So let me give you an example here. So let's say first semester, fall semester next year, the only student that the College Credit Plus student is taking is English, and they get a D. That's going to be a 1.0 grade point average, which would place them on probation. So they're still eligible to continue the next semester by taking one course. However, because they earned a grade of D in English the prior semester, they're no longer eligible to take an English course that following semester then. So it's a little bit restrictive. And the reasoning behind that is the state wants to ensure that a student isn't already digging themselves into a hole when they're participating in College Credit Plus before they've even graduated from high school. So they're going to be very restricted and limited here. And as you heard me say earlier with failing grades and withdrawals, the good news is it's a very small percentage of students that this happens to. I wish I could say it's no students, but it's a smaller percentage. I know in our program in Akron, and I think it's pretty similar at most of the universities throughout the state, the average grade point average that we see with students earning in CCP is right around about a 3.3. So it's still earning mostly A's and B's in their college classes. Okay. There is a credit limit. So when a student is participating in College Credit Plus, in a given year, and the year for CCP participation starts in the summer, followed then by the fall and spring semesters. So that limit for the year is 30 total credits. And then throughout the student's entire participation, they're capped at 120 credits. So this would be, in essence, the equivalent of if a student was going full-time starting as a high school freshman, 30 credits a year over 4 years. Again, you heard me say earlier, not that many students are going full-time. It's usually 1 or 2 classes at a time. But the way this calculation works is there is a conversion of high school to college credits, because the 30 credit limit is not just college credits, it also includes high school credits. So the conversion is right in the middle of the slide here. So any college course that is 3 or more credits, when that transfers back to the high school, that fulfills 1 full high school credit. So for example, if a student is taking English composition, that's a 3 credit hour college class. When that transfers back here to Springfield, that fulfills 1 full high school credit of English. So all of those are kind of factored into the calculation for a student's participation. Now this next slide here, this might be a little bit smaller to see here, but what I tried to illustrate here is, and this is a pretty typical example that we see with a lot of students participating. So if we look at the blue box down at the bottom there, let's say this upcoming school year, your student is going to do CCP, but still through Springfield, they plan to take 5 full high school credits. To equate that to college credits, we just multiply it by 3, because 1 high school credit equals 3 college credits, or vice versa. So what's 5 times 3? Hint, the answer's on the slide. What's 5 times 3, guys? 15. 30 credits is your maximum that the state will pay for through the school year. So if you subtract then 15 from 30, In this example, the student would have 15 total college credits that they have available for their participation for the entire upcoming year. So in this example, I've got the student is taking their through the high school, all 5 credits, and then fall semester through the University of Akron, they took 6 credits or 2 courses, and then 6 credits again in the spring semester. So if you add that all up, there are 15 credits through the high school, and then, or actually, I'm sorry, I just had 1 credit in the spring, or no, it is 2 credits in the spring semester. So that would actually total up to 27 total credits. So technically, the student still had 3 credits left over that they could have spread out into another semester, or if they wanted to have taken a summer class. So really what I'm trying to illustrate is that you can still have a relatively full-time schedule at the high school and fit in some of the college classes to still have a manageable schedule to do this all together. But we work very closely with Mrs. Weekland here at the school, so to ensure that the students are kind of staying within their credit limit and they're not going to be exceeding that for their participation then. Okay. Now, options after high school. So ultimately, if your goal is you're going to do College Credit Plus and you're taking classes through Akron and you want to stay with us to earn your degree, or you're taking classes through Kent State and you're going to stay with Kent to earn your degree, your college transcript has already started and it's going to continue right along. Now, at both of our institutions, we will have students reapply as a high school senior because you'll be changing your status from a CCP student to then a degree-seeking student, but really it's just the formality of reapplying to kind of continue along at that university. If ultimately, though, your goal is to go to another university, I'm going to share 2 websites with you that you can use to check on transferability. So the first one is for the state of Ohio. So it's the website that you see at the bottom here, the transfercredit.ohio.gov/students. So when you go to that website here, you're going to actually click on a link that says Credit Transfer Tool. And when you click on that, basically what it is, it's a search tool that allows you to plug in where you've attended for CCP. You can even select subject areas, and then over on the right-hand side, there's a blue button that says Find Matches. So what I did in this example was I plugged in, I'm attending the University of Akron, English composition was my subject area, and then hit Find Matches. And what it does, it pulls up kind of an accordion list that outlines every one of the state universities and community colleges here in the state of Ohio. And if you click on the universities, it will expand and show you the directly equivalent courses at that university for, in this case, English. So what I did was I opened up Bowling Green, and you can see if you take English Composition 111 at Akron, the directly equivalent English course at Bowling Green State University. So again, this is just for state universities and community colleges here in the state of Ohio because we're all part of the same system. So it's a tool you can use to check on transfer. Another website tool that you can use is this one here called Transferology. So the previous one is just for state schools in Ohio. Transferology is much, much more comprehensive. It includes out-of-state schools, it includes private schools. So it operates in basically the same way as the state website, it's just much, much more expanded. A big difference between the websites though, the state website, you can go right to it and start plugging in information. Transferology does require the student to create an account. Once you've created your account, it operates in the same way. So I skipped the search steps on this one. So what I did was I plugged in, left-hand side is, I'm attending Akron, here's Akron's English courses, right courses at Ohio State. So again, same results, it's showing you course for course what those equivalent courses in that subject area might be. Now, even though you can use websites like these two, I still encourage students and families, it is never too early to contact universities and find out what their transfer policies are. I've worked now with College Credit Plus in the former program called post-secondary for over 20 years, and I've seen everything. I've seen some students go to another university and 100% of the courses that they took transfer to that future institution. I've seen some students, unfortunately, that none of the credits transferred to their future institution. So please, please, please be very educated. Contact schools as early as you possibly can. The schools that are going to be probably a caution for you would be out-of-state schools because this is a state program, and very highly selective private schools. Those are typically the ones that are a little bit more restrictive on what credits they will and will not take. So please be educated and contact schools early to find out their policies. Okay, I'm going to transition now and talk specifically about the University of Akron, and then we'll pass it back to Kent State. So options for classes at Akron, you've got a lot of different ones, but probably your primary one that you're going to have right here at Springfield High School is taking classes either physically instructed by your teachers here at the school or what we call distance learning classes. So you do have a dedicated technology classroom here at Springfield High School, which those classes are instructed on the University of Akron campus and then live and in real time using video conference technology. You're able to communicate back and forth with our professor and the students that are taking the classes on campus, as well as typically we have a couple high schools connected together at the same time. So for those classes, here's a list of the subject areas just for those classes alone. The top are the distance learning classes. Now those are not every semester. Some of the courses we basically flip-flop. So for example, you might take economics one semester and government the other. And so those are the distance learning classes here in the distance learning classroom. And then down at the bottom are the classes instructed by your teachers here at Springfield High School, but it's a University of Akron class. So that's probably the number one course format that most of the Springfield students are completing, because it's a slam dunk, because you physically don't have to leave the confines of the school to take those classes. But again, more and more we are having Springfield students also looking for additional online classes. Probably not as much anymore. We used to have some students driving to our campus to take classes, which is also absolutely is a possibility. But just out of convenience, I think more students are either leaning towards these classes at the school or online classes. Eligibility and admissions requirements. Guess what? The eligibility requirements I covered are the same for the University of Akron. So you can qualify with that 3.0 or higher high school GPA. We also would evaluate students if they have at least a 2.75 to determine if there is additional testing that they may need. Or if a student is an underclassman or doesn't have a 2.75, they can complete the ACT or SAT to qualify for eligibility to participate in the program. Again, just keep in mind, if you are admitted to the program based on your GPA, that does not automatically exclude you from testing. We would have you do placement testing through the university specifically for course placement after you have been accepted into the program. Application instructions, almost identical to what I covered earlier, talking about the steps. So you need your online application, your school transcript, the permission slip for the state, and then Akron does have another form called a signature page. Signature page is different from the permission slip because it requires a student, parent, and also a counselor signature, and it's got some slightly different information on there than the permission slip. Test scores not required unless you don't have that GPA, and then very, very important, the application deadline for next summer and fall, it's the same. It's April 15th. So students do need to have their online application submitted prior to that date. We will take the supplemental documents after that, but you at least have to have the admissions application submitted before that. And then students can apply midway through the year. That application deadline would be October 15th. Just keep in mind, you still have to have that intent form submitted to the school before April 1st for the entire upcoming year. So that would have to be submitted even for spring admission. And then test dates here, you can find all the corresponding. So if a student does want to take ACT or SAT, you're more than welcome to do that. Let me see a show of hands, though. I have some current juniors in the auditorium right now. Ooh, all underclassmen. Okay, because juniors, you'll be taking the ACT here at the school coming up. And then placement testing, I've mentioned that again a couple times. So if a student is admitted based on their GPA, you will still be required to complete placement testing. So we administer the AccuPlacer. It's a writing test for English placement and a reading test for social sciences like psychology, sociology, government, history, economics. And then we have an online math placement test that students can take as well. The writing and reading tests are in person. So those do need to be completed on our campus. That one is very, very important. You need to pay attention to the instructions you get from the university because it'll give you detailed instructions of how you can schedule an appointment in our testing center and complete that on campus. And then orientation, I mentioned this one earlier too. Students, once they're admitted, are going to attend an orientation program during which you'll actually meet with an advisor and register for classes. And then just a couple other things to keep in mind, which this happened last week. Your college classes, if you're taking distance learning classes, online classes, on-campus classes, those follow the University of Akron's calendar. Classes instructed here at the school follow your high school calendar. So there could be two sets of calendars that you have to pay attention to. And then support services. Students are eligible to take advantage of tutoring. Again, Office of Accessibility would assist students for assessment of accommodations, and our library is available to all students. And then last but not least here, contact information. So on the handout that was at the tables there, it has all of those application instructions as well as contact information. I always joke, I don't know if it makes it easier or more confusing. Both of us with the program are named Greg, but you're going to start with Greg Landis in admissions. I'm Greg Daringer, the director of the program, so I'll be handed off by Mr. Landis once you've been admitted. So I'm gonna stop there, and I'm gonna put up our Kent State presentation, and then we will field questions, because I'm sure you'll have some questions when we're done. We'll field questions once we get through our Kent State information. So they're all yours.
Hi, everybody. I'm Trevor Householder. I'm the College Credit Plus coordinator down at Kent State Stark, so down in North Canton. My slides, very brief, because I'm sure you guys are a little overwhelmed with information, probably. So to apply to Kent State, it's a very simple process. So as Greg mentioned, a lot of those eligibility standards are pretty similar with Kent State as well, too. So typically, if a student has a 3.0 unweighted high school GPA or above that, then once we receive their transcript and their permission form information, then they would be admitted. If they have below the 3.0, like if they have that 2.75, we can look at different courses and see if they would be eligible that way as well too. And then, as Greg mentioned, if you have a middle school student who has not yet established that high school GPA, then we can utilize ACT, SAT, or AccuPlacer to see if they can be admitted. Our application deadlines, so for the summer, it's April 15th. For the fall, it's June 1st. And then for spring of 2026 would be October 15th. So the website's there at the bottom, www.kent.edu/ccp. You would go on there as a student, make sure that you apply, and once again, use a personal email that you're going to check regularly, not like your high school email or your parent email or anything like that. Once a student is admitted, then they're going to get what's called a Flashline account. That's their student account that they're going to use and hopefully check regularly. But once they receive that, then they're going to get an invitation to complete an online orientation. We use a system called Canvas. It's our online learning system. So they would go on, they would complete this online orientation. And then after they complete that online orientation, that's whenever they would meet with an academic advisor and talk about the classes that they're interested in and help them get registered, things like that. And the great thing about taking classes through Kent State, obviously there's the courses that are offered here at the high school that you could take and not even have to leave the building. But with Kent State, since we have the main campus in Kent and we have all the regional campuses like Kent Stark, where I'm from, a student can really leverage those resources and be able to take classes through a lot of different places. So they could be maybe taking the classes here and maybe take an online class through the main campus, or come down to Kent Stark and take an in-person class. So there's a lot of ways that students can find classes and have things available to them. And one thing I would probably recommend, because I believe the main campus does the coordinating of the classes that are here at the high school. So whenever you would go on and apply, it might be best, either way it kind of doesn't matter, but it might be best if you apply directly to the Kent campus, because when you go into that application portal, it's going to ask you which campus you want to apply to. So just to kind of keep things consistent and probably make it easier for your counselors as well too, if you could just remember, maybe just apply to the Kent campus, that might be best. Each student, they are provided an assigned academic advisor, so that's going to be someone who they can meet with, they can ask questions, they can seek out support services, things like that. So we're kind of like your main go-to people for anything that you might need. All of our campuses have some version of an academic success center, so you as a student would be able to get tutoring in any subject if you need assistance with that. We have career services offices, so if you as a student don't know exactly yet what you might want to do in life, maybe you're thinking about different careers, different majors, you should be able to meet with them as well, and they can help sort through those thoughts that you have. We also have accessibility offices at our campuses. So as Greg mentioned, the 504 plans, the IEPs, those don't automatically transfer to the university. That's something that you have to initiate that process and seek out that office and kind of go through their processes to see what accommodations and support services you can get to. And then, just as with many other universities, I'm sure, we have a lot of tech support services at our campuses. A lot of our campuses have tech staff that are there available to you if you have any issues. And then Kent State does offer access to be able to get like a free student version of Microsoft Office on your computers too. And then just some further opportunities here too. There is a science experience internship that students can do. They can really do it through any of the campuses, but the student can get paired with like a faculty member to do like research and things like that. I know our campus and the Kent campus and some other campuses have recreation and wellness centers, so those are also available for use by a CCP student. And then all of our campuses have a lot of different student organizations and clubs that a CCP student can get involved in. I know the Stark campus specifically, we have like over 20 student clubs, and we do have some CCP students who, if they're taking classes at the campus, they get involved in those, and it's a great way to meet like-minded peers and make some of those different connections. So with that, I'll kind of highlight again, just make sure that you go on and apply by those deadlines. Your counselor should have all that information set up in the Google Classroom. And then once you apply, have the school send over a transcript, complete the permission form, and then go through that online orientation process. And then you kind of can go from there in terms of getting classes scheduled. So thank you. And we'll take questions.
Yeah, we'll take questions, and Mrs. Weekman can chime in too if you need anything. So don't be shy, raise your hands, and we'll see how we can help.
How many of you are in 9th grade? 10th grade? Okay. Our population right now, I would say we have about 50 to 60 students doing CCP. The majority of them, actually all of them, are juniors and seniors. And they're allowed to take it when they're younger, but the issue that a lot of students find, and maybe some of you that were here last year, in your 10th grade schedule, oftentimes you don't have room in your day to take classes. You're like, oh, but I'm already taking Advanced English 10, and I'm already taking, and so the thought of taking a college class can be overwhelming. It seems to fit better in 11th and 12th grade just because of just the nature of your schedule. But you can take a class, say, in the summer. Maybe I had a girl that's a senior this year. She goes full day to Portage Lakes Career Center, and she took 2 classes over the summer that'll help her out when she's going to college next year. So there's those options. But that's just where our population is right now. Mostly everybody's juniors and seniors. I will say our Kent State classes, though, that Trevor was talking about, those are senior level classes right now. So we have Lori Smith teaches college algebra for Calculus Plus. Although I think we have some math kids that are faster, don't we? There's some of you that might be here. I've got a few math kids this year that are further ahead than I've ever had any students in 9th and 10th grade. So typically those math classes have been, the Kent State math class has been for seniors, and you have to place into that with an ALEX test. And then Mr. Mancuso teaches some geology classes through Kent State. Most of my juniors all take the University of Akron. Some have gone down to Stark State and take classes too. So if you're a sophomore right now, I'm going to be meeting with you to schedule for 11th grade very soon, within the next month. So don't panic and don't freak out like, I don't know what to do next. The letter of intent, get that turned in. That form that says you were here, that counseling form, get that turned in. If you want to just hold on and wait until you see me when I come into your classroom and then when I pull you out into the hallway and talk to you, that's fine. As far as the younger students go, I'm not sure Mrs. Moss's preference and Ms. Von Gutten, but sometimes Ms. Von Gutten has had students just book me for an appointment, and they just come talk to me. But you're welcome to talk to Ms. Von Gutten, you're welcome to talk to Mrs. Moss, but sometimes they bring me in on a conversation too. So I promise you're not going to fly blind through this. I've been doing this a long time, and I'll help you as much as I can. But the big thing would be, you know, getting your transcript, seeing if you have that cumulative GPA of a 3.0, because some kids get confused about a cumulative GPA. They're like, oh, I just got a 3.7 on my report card, but maybe their cumulative GPA is only a 2.7. Okay? Do you guys know you guys get your transcripts, right? Everybody gets a copy. 10th graders, I'll be giving you yours here soon. It's on your transcript, your cumulative GPA. But what other questions do you have for these gentlemen? It's a lot of information, isn't it? It's, like I said, those two forms are the best place to start right now, and you can turn those into the counseling office in room 105. Just drop those off to Mrs. Duffield. She'll make sure we get them. And then if you just want to pump the brakes, book an appointment with me, that's fine too. But you've got some time on your hands, a little bit of time. What do you think? No questions?
So we overwhelmed you, or we did such a great
It's
job?
a lot,
Everybody's
right?
good, yeah.
Yes.
And question's more for you, I believe. How do the CCP classes correspond with the PLCC?
So I probably have about 6 or 7 students that take, they go to Portage Lake. So the juniors go to Portage Lakes in the morning, and I have a couple that come here right halfway through the day, and they go right upstairs and they're in the government class right now in the distance lab, so they got to get here right away and get into that class. And then a couple of those same students take English Comp 8th period, Mrs. Humanansky. So Akron doesn't change their schedule to fit our schedule. It just so happens that government class falls at a really good time, because government is required for all juniors. So that class happens to fit perfectly, but it's not guaranteed that all of them are going to fit. But I try really hard to schedule like an English composition in the morning with Mrs. Humanansky and one in the afternoon. We also have the distance learning lab has English composition in it too. So kids can do both. Kids can do CCP and Portage Lakes Career Center. I think I said I have like 4 or 5 of them doing it right now.
So they would have to be half day?
Yes. Yeah. Unless they just want to do it a summer class, like one of my full day PLCC students. She took maybe 2 or 3 classes over the summer, and she was able to do that.
Is a summer shorter duration?
Yeah, so you're taking 15 weeks condensed into what, 5?
Yeah, I think,
We have
Same.
5 or 8.
yeah.
5 or
our
8.
sa- Our same for Akron. That's,
But if you want to just dabble in it, you can do that too. You know, take a gen ed class, you know, and psychology, sociology, something, a speech class, something like that.
Is that typically at the university? Or
They have them online too.
yeah, at least for Akron, Trevor can talk to Kent State too. The majority of our summer classes now are online, with the exception of some of the math and then science, because they might have labs in them. But a lot of the English and the other social science classes are now online. Keep that in mind though, because then that's an interesting intersection of an accelerated 5 or 8 week class also online, which may or may not be the best starting point for a student sometimes.
It's tough.
Some students love it, some students hate it. Yeah, it just really depends on the student.
It's normal, like most students in 11th grade take 2 classes, I feel like, in the fall, and 2 classes in the spring. And then they blend it with, you know, their Algebra 2 class, and then like advanced chem or physics, French, you know what I mean, band. They blend it all together, and that's one of my jobs is I make sure you're not going over those 30 credits for the whole year for both semesters. Question over there?
Yeah, if they do an online, like during the fall, how does that work with their high school schedule?
So an online class is your online class. So like you may have an academic privilege in your schedule, and hopefully you will. So you could sit in the library and watch videos and put earbuds in and watch your videos, or otherwise you're doing it at home. And I'll be completely honest, like Greg said, most of our students are successful. but every single semester since I've worked here, almost a student has failed a class. So, and then they have to pay that money back to the high school. They pay money. It's not a ton of money. It's not as much as you or I would pay to go to college, but it's still, and it's the F is on their transcript for high school and college. And I've had a student on probation every year since probation has been a thing. And so then they have to work their way out of probation, and that's hard. It's hard to get off probation. But it's possible, so I'm just being realistic. And these are all straight A students that go into CCP almost. You know, they're all our top students. Nobody ever expects that they're gonna fail a class. But what happens, the one girl that failed this past semester, it was an online class and she didn't keep up with it. She just kept blowing it off. And then instead of emailing the professor and asking, for an extension maybe, or grace, maybe just asking for grace. What's the worst they can do is say no, right? But I tell kids, email your professors. And I don't know why they're afraid.
Are the professors typically a little more lenient for the high school students than they are for the college students?
No, yeah,
They
so
don't care that you're.
Yeah, you hear that question, if the college professors are lenient for high school students? No. They're gonna treat the student as any college student, so it depends on the professor, to be honest. So
They're really
some
good
may allow
professors, though.
late work, some will not. And as Mrs. Weekland said, the students that have gotten into difficulty, it's way past the point that there's any type of concessions that can be made for those students. They've let stuff drag on for too long that, asking for late work is just not gonna be a possibility.
So, you know yourself better, you know, the students know themselves, can I pace myself? I will give you a study hall in your day. I do that all the time for my CCP kids. Now, what they use that study hall for, I can't sit there and force them to log into their class. I hope that they're doing it, but I can't force them. Yeah.
What about your seniors? What's the average credits they're getting?
Oh, gosh, they're doing almost, yeah, they're doing
They're
mostly.
basically full-time as
A lot of
senior.
them, yeah, and I only require 4 classes for seniors, because of sports eligibility, you need to stay eligible, state funding. And I think that's realistic to take 4, so blend of 4 to 5 classes senior year, so.
But like, if all their high school classes are done, they can just absorb
Yeah.
and just take as many
Yeah.
as they can.
I have a lot taking and they're here, because we do have some nice, senior level CCP classes here. We have a distance learning lab on our 2nd floor by the elevator. If you guys don't know where that's at, you can pop by and see that. We've got, right now, government and economics, I think, is the only class this semester in there. So,
And then your freshmen that are doubling up in the maths.
I have no idea what I'm gonna do with them.
Do you think that's gonna free up possibly an opportunity for them to take a class as a sophomore, since they're doubling up?
Yep.
Okay.
Depends on what they wanna do, yeah, sure.
Okay.
And like the math, we have advanced chemistry, we have physics, those are double block class 2, so depending on where they're at in their math, in their science sequence, but sure. Yeah. I think our distance learning lab is a great opportunity if it fits in their schedule. Just because if you walk in there, the screens, I teach the kids how to run the equipment the first day of class, so that way they can run it without me. And they learn how to pull the screens, press a button, the screens come down from the ceiling, and they turn the computer on the desk, and it's live, being broadcast live off of campus. And there's microphones on the desk, so the kids can click the microphone and ask the professor a question, and they can interact. So that's really nice.
So do you have an average student count in each class by chance? Do you have these remote learning classes tie into your classes on campus?
What
All
was
the
this?
distance classes?
Yeah, like, you
So,
have like, 5 schools and.
Psychology in the fall had 7 for us in our upstairs. Right now, government's our biggest class of 15. We max it out at 15.
You may mention that we may be tied in with other districts.
Oh,
Right,
the
yeah,
teachers.
so
We know-
it depends on the course, yeah, so,
Okay.
so something like psychology and government are more of a lecture formatted class, so they are bigger, but I don't think we've, pushing 20 maybe, but
Yeah.
it's been several
That's
years
not
since
bad.
we've had that
That's
many
not
though. And that's gonna max out the size of the
I mean,
room
it's
there,
not like
too.
a lecture hall.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah,
60,
whereas,
70,
whereas
80
English
students.
composition, even though most are taken here at the school, we'll have maybe 2 to 5 students in it
Okay.
comparatively, yeah,
All right,
yeah.
And even Kelly Humansky keeps
Thank
her
you.
capped at like 15.
that's good. I think that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, for sure, get some free college. Both of my kids did it when they were in high school. They left with a lot of credits under their belt.
Did they all carry?
Pardon
Did
me?
they all cross over?
Yeah, both of my kids went to Akron, so
Oh, that's easy.
Akron offers really great scholarships, so. Sorry, Ken, I just,
That does do.
Akron treated my kids really good, so. Any more questions? Reach out to me, I'm Melinda Weekland. You can find me on the website, just SP_Weekland. Reach out to Mrs. Moss, Mrs. Von Dutton, whatever we can do to help you, and we'll get you straightened away, no problem. The ACT is coming up in, I think, what are we in, January, February? Is there one in February? Who was telling me? Was it
February 25th.
Sarah somewhere? February 25th? The deadline's probably already
Yeah, that's
passed for
probably,
that one.
yeah, if it hasn't passed, it's really close to it. I might have it on here, actually.
The juniors are taking the ACT, and that one will count. But like he said, you can take a placement test at the university as well.
Yeah, I think I do have it listed on there.
Here's another thing. Check your emails, for goodness sakes. High school boys, I love you, but check
February
your
18th,
emails.
yeah.
Because everything they do is based through
Was early.
emails. Kids will come to me like, I applied to Akron and I haven't heard anything. And I'm like, did you check your email? And it's in their emails. They mess up.
And you don't even have to check your email now. So I know both of our institutions, for admissions, they use, it's software called Slate. You actually have what is called your own applicant portal. You can clearly see in there, you can upload your own documents, you can see what your admission status is, so it's your own fault if you don't know what your admission status is at that point, but you will receive the email communications as well. Here are the test dates. Unfortunately, the February date has passed. It's early this year. It was February 8th coming up, so it was all the way back January 3rd. I know at our institution, we will still take the April test as the last one for fall, summer and fall consideration. But again, only needed if you don't have those qualifying GPAs. If you have the qualifying GPAs, you'll be admitted, but just keep in mind, you'll do placement testing after admission.
Yeah, you need a test score to test into like English composition and government and psychology. Like you can get accepted into the program, but then you need to pass a test so that we know you can handle the class. If that makes any sense. It was something I was going to tell you, and I forget what it is. It's gone. I'm not brain. Yes.
So he's in eighth grade right now. Is there like as far as like high school credit, is there like a minimum amount of classes for him to get their cumulative GPA, or is like one?
What does he do as an eighth
Yeah,
grader?
so so has he taken algebra or anything else that counts for high school?
Algebra and Spanish.
Okay, so that is enough for us to consider that for a high school GPA being established. I don't know.
Yeah,
Temp
could be similar,
purposes,
yeah.
yeah, so we would confirm that like, hey, yeah, with the counselors, yes, this is for high school credit, and then we can use that to assess the GPA. So basically need B or higher in all classes to meet that 3.0.
All right. Have a good night, you guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Yep,
thank
you're
you.
welcome. It is kind of a little bit now. It's like orientation in the summer.